let's jump into a story that's been making headlines. You know how it goes. You train for years, you put your heart and soul into the biggest competition in the world, the Olympics. You win a medal, and then it starts falling apart.
It's kind of wild, right? How this is overshadowing what was supposed to be a really successful Olympics in Paris.
Yeah, it really is. And these medals are meant to be like these lasting symbols of athletic achievement, but then they're just crumbling right in front of us. I mean, it makes you think about what these symbols actually mean.
Yeah, like how long does that value really last?
Yeah.
It's a good question.
Yeah.
It is interesting, especially since they were supposed to be about strength and all that, right? They even put a piece of the Eiffel Tower in each one.
Right. And now they're like literally falling apart. Some of them look like they've been buried for like hundreds of years.
Yeah, the difference is pretty striking, especially when you compare them to the medals from past games, like the ones from the Tokyo Olympics in 2021.
Yeah, for sure. We're not talking about like little scratches here. Some of these medals are like crumbling, staining, deteriorating really fast. It's almost like a bad joke. The Eiffel Tower, which is all about strength and standing tall, is falling apart inside the medals.
It's kind of ironic.
Totally. It's definitely not the legacy that anyone was hoping for. And you really have to feel for the athletes, I mean, this is like the peak of their careers, and to have that tarnished, literally and figuratively, it's got to be a huge disappointment.
Imagine training your whole life for this, right? Finally achieving your dream, and then the medal that's supposed to represent all of that starts to disintegrate. It's a tough blow.
Absolutely. It's not just about the object itself, it's what it means to them. Years of dedication and sacrifice and all that.
Blood, sweat, and tears, literally.
Yeah.
And it's not just a few athletes who are having this problem, it's over 100 of them, right?
Yeah, and it seems like the bronze medals are being hit the hardest.
That's right. Those seem to be the most delicate, or however you want to put it. There are even pictures online, like the one that French swimmer, what was his name? Johan Indoi-Brouard, I think. He shared a photo of his, and it's really damaged.
Yeah, wow. So it's pretty bad.
Yeah, pretty noticeable. It makes you wonder what happened during the whole production process, What materials did they use?
Right, like what's causing this? So the investigations have pointed to a kind of ironic culprit, a defective varnish.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, see, the old varnish they used to use contained chromium trioxide, which is, a carcinogen. So they wanted to make the metals safer, so they switched to a new varnish, and now we have this whole situation.
So trying to solve one problem created another.
Exactly, and a very public one at that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious, from your perspective, I know you always like to connect the dots and see the bigger picture. What does this say about how we approach these big events?
Well, I think it shows how complex things really are, even with something like manufacturing. I mean, you have the Olympics, which is this huge global event with all these moving parts, supply chains, different people and organizations involved. Everyone's trying to make it perfect. But even with like really strict quality control, stuff can still go wrong.
Yeah, you're right. But this isn't just a small mistake. This is impacting the symbol of the entire event, the thing that these athletes have been working towards their whole lives.
What do you think the ripple effect of this will be?
That's a good question. I think it could damage the reputation of not just the Paris Games, but the Olympics as a whole. I mean, the Olympics are supposed to be about excellence and fair play and all that, but when the actual symbol of that starts to, fall apart, it raises questions about the integrity of the whole thing.
Yeah, I see what you mean.
It undermines the whole message, doesn't it? These athletes achieve these amazing things, and then they get a medal that falls apart like some cheap souvenir.
Interesting point. It's almost like there's this disconnect between how the Olympics are supposed to be and how they actually are.
Like the reality of it. Are we too focused on the image of perfection, Are these medals even a good representation of the athlete's hard work if they just fall apart so easily?
That's a good question. Maybe this is a chance to rethink what's really important,
Yeah, maybe. One athlete whose story really highlights the impact of this is that Australian BMX cyclist, Natalia Diem. She won bronze, and within a week, it was already showing a lot of wear and tear.
Oh, wow.
We actually have those before and after pictures on the website if you want to see. It's actually pretty shocking.
Yeah.
And it's not like she was doing anything crazy with it, just normal wear and tear.
That's a shame.
It really makes you think about the materials they used. And this isn't just about her, right? It's over 100 athletes dealing with this.
Right, across different sports and everything.
Okay, so we've talked about the medals themselves, what it means for the athletes, and what it means for the Olympics. But who's responsible for this whole mess? That's where things get even more interesting.
Well, it seems like everyone's trying to avoid taking the blame.
Hmm.
The IOC, the organizing committee, the French Mint, even the design house, they're all trying to distance themselves.
It's like a blame game. Right. So who's pointing the finger at who?
Okay, so the IOC has been quick to apologize, and they've promised to replace all the bad metals.
Yeah, I saw that. It's smart PR, right? Trying to control the story.
Yeah, it's definitely damage control.
Mhm.
But are they really getting to the root of the problem? Or are they just trying to make it go away?
Right. Good point.
Yeah.
What about the French Mint, the Monet de Paris? They're the ones who actually made the medals, right?
Yeah, and they're pushing back against the IOC. They don't like that the IOC called the metals defective,
What do they want to call them instead?
damaged. Apparently, that's a really important difference to them.
Interesting. What's the difference?
Well, they're basically saying, we made the metals exactly how they were supposed to be made. If they're falling apart, it's not our fault.
So maybe it's the design
Mm.
or the materials.
Exactly. And then you have the design house, Chaumet. They're owned by LVMH, that fancy luxury brand. And they're like, hold on, we just did the design. We didn't make the things.
So everyone's passing the buck. No one wants to take responsibility. It kind of makes you wonder about how things work at the Olympics. You'd think there'd be more oversight.
Yeah, it shows how when you have all these different people involved, things can slip through the cracks.
Right. Everyone thinks someone else is handling it, and then boom, you've got a huge problem.
It's ironic, right? The Olympics are supposed to be the best of the best. And yet, here we are with medals that can't even hold it together.
It really makes you think about what matters more, trying to be perfect or actually being excellent.
Yeah. Are we so focused on the image that we forget about the substance? Good question.
So what happens now? What are they going to do about all this?
Well, the IOC says they'll replace all the messed up metals by early 2025.
That's a lot of medals.
Yeah, it's a huge logistical challenge.
Yeah.
You got to find all the athletes, get the old medals back, and make new ones. And this time they got to make sure they don't fall apart.
Right. But even if they do all that, the reputation of the Paris Games has already taken a hit. I mean, how do you come back from that?
It's tough. It makes you wonder if maybe the design of the medals was part of the problem. I mean, they wanted to be all innovative and put a piece of the Eiffel Tower in there.
Right. And now it's like super ironic because the Eiffel Tower is all about strength and permanence, and these medals are the opposite of that.
Exactly. The symbolism is pretty striking.
Right.
The thing that's supposed to represent strength is literally crumbling.
Yeah, it's like a metaphor for how fleeting fame can be, right? Even if you achieve something great, things can still go wrong.
And it wasn't just the Eiffel Tower. They also put Nike on the front, the Greek goddess of victory.
She probably wouldn't be too happy about this whole situation.
Not at all. The goddess of victory being represented by a medal that falls apart.
It's kind of funny when you think about it.
You know what? This whole thing has got me thinking about the history of Olympic medals. Like, they haven't always been these fancy things, right?
Yeah, that's a good point. It would be interesting to see how they've changed over time. Maybe that'll give us some more context for what's happening now.
Yeah, let's take a little trip down memory lane. Think about all these medal problems in Paris. It's got me wondering about the whole idea of Olympic medals, Like, they're just pieces of metal, but they obviously mean a lot more than that.
Right. There's a lot of history and symbolism packed into those little things.
Yeah.
Way more than just their actual value.
So, like, when did we even start giving out medals at the Olympics?
Well, the first Olympic medals, like the ones we know today, were given out at the 1896 Games in Athens, but before that, it was totally different.
Okay, so like laurel wreaths. Or a handshake from Zeus. Uh-huh. Not quite. In the ancient Olympics, they gave out olive branches. Those were a big deal in Greek culture. But when they started the modern Olympics, they wanted to give out something more, well, tangible.
Something you could actually hold on to.
Right. And in the early games, they tried different things. Wreaths, silver cups, diplomas. It was all over the place.
So no viral TikToks for those guys.
Nope. It wasn't until 1904 at the St. Louis Games that they settled on the gold, silver, bronze thing we know today.
Okay, so tell me about those first medals. Were they actually made of solid gold?
Actually, the winners in 1896 got silver medals plus an olive bunch. Second place was bronze. And get this, there wasn't even a prize for third place.
No way. So different from today. It seems like things have changed quite a bit.
Oh yeah, for sure. The designs have changed a ton. They always try to show off the host city, their culture and all that.
I bet some of those old designs are pretty out there.
Oh yeah, there are some wild ones. The medals from the 1924 Paris Games, those are considered like Art Deco masterpieces. They were designed by this famous sculptor, Antoine Bourdelle, and they show an athlete being crowned by Nike, the goddess of victory, with Paris in the background.
Wow, that sounds amazing. So the 1924 medals are famous for their beauty, and the 2024 medals. Well, that's so much.
It really shows you how things have changed. I
Yeah.
think in the old days, they cared more about the artistry. They saw the medals as works of art meant to be kept forever, like little sculptures. But then the Olympics got bigger and bigger, more athletes, more events, and they had to start mass producing them.
So they went for quantity over quality.
Kind of. And it's tough to keep the quality up when you're making so many. So maybe that's part of the problem with the Paris medals. They were trying to do too much too fast.
It's that tension again, isn't it? The Olympics are all about excellence and pushing boundaries, but then you have the reality of making things cheaply and quickly.
And that's where the problem comes in. It's like, how do you stay true to the values of the Olympics when you're dealing with mass production and all the pressure that comes with it?
Yeah, that's the big question. I mean, it's great to have these medals, but maybe we need to rethink how we make them, focus on quality and making sure they last.
Or maybe it's about shifting our focus. Maybe the medal isn't really the point. It's about what those athletes went through to get there, the dedication, the hard work,
The journey, not the destination.
right, the memories, the feeling of accomplishment. Those are the things that last forever no matter what happens to a piece of metal.
Yeah, you're right. It's about the spirit of the Olympics. That's what we should be celebrating. So it feels like we've covered a lot of ground today, and I'm not sure we've answered all the questions, but we've definitely raised some important ones, right?
Definitely. It's good to challenge our assumptions and think about the things we take for granted, even something like an Olympic medal.
Well said. And to everyone listening, we'd love to hear your thoughts on this whole medal situation. What are your takeaways? Let us know. And until next time, keep diving deep.